A headline from the Washington Post for every day of January 2022. Homicides soar in D.C. and Maryland suburbs in 2021. Despite biomedical advances, U.S. still struggling with pandemic. Since January 6th, the pro-Trump internet has descended into infighting over money and followers. After Election Day, Facebook groups filled with attacks on Biden's victory. Lawmakers are discussing more pandemic relief for businesses. Biden says Trump spread web of lies. Biden's vaccine mandate for workers arrives at high court. U.S. to discuss missile deployments with Russia in bid to defuse Ukraine crisis. New texts reveal the influence of Fox News hosts on Trump's White House. Treasury warns of enormous challenges this tax filing season that could delay refunds. COVID's latest surge spreads an epidemic of confusion. Inflation in 2021 was highest in 40 years. The past 7 years have been the hottest in recorded history. Russia planning for sabotage in Ukraine, U.S. says. Biden comes up against the office's limits and his presidency's fragility. Justice Department's January 6 conspiracy probe doesn't seem to directly pursue Trump. Swing district Democrats push leadership to break up spending bill. Florida governor proposes special police agency to monitor elections. Inside Biden's declining popularity as he struggles with multiple crises. House GOP plots policy agenda for 2022 elections with help from Newt Gingrich. Meatloaf, whose operatic rock anthems made him an unlikely pop star, dies at 74. Inflation is wiping out pay increases for most Americans. U.S. government struggles with when and how to bring employees back to the office. 7 Virginia school boards sue to stop Youngkin's order banning mask mandates. Biden's chief of staff had the perfect resume. His first year shows his limits. White House says 400 million vaccination doses donated to global effort. Breyer expected to formally announce plans to retire at end of court's term. Putin stands fast on Ukraine's demands in call with Macron. GOP-led states rush to pass anti-abortion bills. Inside the campaign to pressure Justice Breyer to retire. U.S. and Russia clash sharply over Ukraine at UN Security Council meeting. A few headlines from February 2022. 4.3 million Americans quit jobs in December as Omicron surged. U.S. to send military reinforcements to Eastern Europe. ISIS leader dead after U.S. raid in Syria, Biden says. Biden orders Trump White House visitor logs to be given to January 6 panel. Ukraine and Moscow-backed separatists trade accusations of shelling. Biden gathers Western allies amid reports of evacuations from separatist area. I'm going to break the fourth wall a little bit here and give a little bit of an explanation. The reason most of February and all of March are missing is because I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks and recovery was tough. I was unable to hand collect headlines from the websites every day. Since the news sources change headlines 3 times or more in a single day, I didn't feel comfortable backfilling any of the headlines, as I cannot verify how they originally appeared. If there's one thing I value, it's the integrity of my own project. I may change my opinion on this section at some point, but for now, this section is left intentionally blank. The major events that happen in this section is Russia invasion of Ukraine and the trucker protesting in Canada, if you're looking for the topics. An explanation for what I've been slowly building. Since late 2019, I've been hand collecting a headline a day from multiple news sources every day from a wide spectrum politically. I put in what I collect in chronological order by news source on my website so that I can see what types of stories they're pushing and the language they're using every day, a type of report card of what they say. As the media stealth edits their headlines a lot, I wanted a more accurate record of what was said, as well as the original headline if I had to look up something else again. I envision a world where we have this available from every news source in every country. Then side-by-side comparisons would exist, as well as we would see everything governments are telling their citizens. Maybe we would all be a little more understanding as to their plights as well. Anyway, back to the show, and thanks for watching. A headline for every day of April 2022. Peace talks uncertain as Russia claims Ukraine attacked Belgorod fuel depot. Red Cross tries Mariupol evacuation again. Scenes of horror in Bucha spark outcry. Biden decries Putin as a war criminal. Zelensky demands accountability after terrible war crimes. U.S. toughens sanctions as evidence of atrocities mounts. Russia suspended from UN Human Rights Council. At least 50 killed in airstrike. Ukraine vows to continue evacuations after train station attack. Evacuations underway in East Ukraine as battle lines shift. Russia's oligarchs and their long record of masking fortunes. Multiple people shot, at least 13 injured in Brooklyn subway station. Undetonated devices found, FDNY officials say. Russia broke humanitarian law, OSCE says in report detailing attacks on civilians. Russian warship badly damaged. Ukrainians claim it was sunk by missile strike. Russia warns U.S. to stop arming Ukraine. Explosions reported near Kiev. Officials plan U.S. visit. No sign of surrender in Mariupol after Russian ultimatum. Missiles strike Lviv. Ukrainian forces refuse to quit Mariupol. Russia begins battle for Donbass in east. Mariupol holding on as Russia's deadline to surrender passes. Biden announces ban on Russian-affiliated ships in U.S. ports, new Ukrainian aid. Commander says Russia seeks control of South. Ukraine alleges renewed attack on Mariupol plant. Before visit by U.S. officials, Ukraine pushes for more arms. Blinken says Russia is failing to reach its goals for the war. Time is not on Ukraine's side, U.S. general says. Russia cuts off gas to Poland and Bulgaria. U.S. economy shrinks 1.4% in first quarter, raising fears of recession. Cracks emerge in Russian elite as tycoons start to bemoan evasion. Ukraine says Russian assault in Donbass not succeeding. A headline for every day of May 2022. Nancy Pelosi and Democratic lawmakers visit Zelensky in Kiev. Pelosi meets Polish president. Roberts says court will investigate leak of draft Roe v. Wade opinion. In draft opinion on abortion, Democrats see a court at odds with democracy. White House scrambles for ways to protect abortion. U.S. gave intelligence that helped sink Russian ship. As war grinds on, the definition of victory remains murky. Jill Biden and Justin Trudeau make unannounced visits to Ukraine. On Victory Day, Putin defends war as fight against Nazis. Gas prices reach record highs as Biden vows inflation top priority. Inflation edged down in April compared to previous month, but remains high, data shows. Finland's NATO bid is definitely a threat, Russia says. Kremlin vows retaliatory steps over membership. Turkey's Erdogan voices skepticism on Sweden and Finland joining NATO. GOP senators visit Kiev. Buffalo shooting that killed 10 was racially motivated hate crime, officials say. Victims' names released. Suspect allegedly made school threat. Buffalo shooting suspect wrote plans months ago, online messages show. Trump-backed candidate holds razor-thin lead in Pennsylvania Senate race. U.S. may be barreling towards recession in next year, more experts say. Ginny Thomas pressed Arizona lawmakers to help reverse Trump's loss. Russia ties to rebound as prospects for victory fade. Inside the GOP push to stop Trump vendetta tour in Georgia. Biden vows to defend Taiwan if China were to invade. Putin made big strategic mistake, NATO chief says. Massacre in a fourth-grade classroom. Scrutiny mounts over police response. We wanted to storm the building. Police were wrong not to pursue gunman, official says. Biden visits Uvalde to meet with families of shooting victims. Texas's romance with guns tested by Uvalde massacre. Oil prices surge and gas hits new high after EU cracks down on Russia. A headline for every day of June 2022. Job openings in April remain near record highs, U.S. employers report. Tulsa gunman killed surgeon who treated him, police say. Angry young men and guns, mass shooter patterns emerge. Baby formula plant at heart of shortage reopens, company says. How Biden lost mansion and build back better. More traditional coronavirus shot could be available this summer. World Bank warns global economy may suffer 1970s-style stagflation. Gun violence victims testify at House hearing. Nearly 9 in 10 Americans say they are feeling inflation's pinch. Panel blames Trump for Capitol carnage. The shadow race is underway for the Republican presidential nomination. Senators strike bipartisan gun deal, heralding potential breakthrough. Trump became detached from reality on election fraud claims, Barr testifies. Many GOP candidates intend to use public office to affect electoral outcomes. GOP spends millions on election volunteers to search for fraud. January 6 panel to seek Ginny Thomas interview. Soaring fuel costs pose threat to Biden administration and overall economic recovery. Americans are starting to pull back on travel and restaurants. Fed's interest rate hikes may mark start of tough new economic climate. Trump campaign documents give inside look at fake elector plan. Panel to hear testimony about Trump's campaign to pressure state officials. NFL's Goodell says he does not recall Daniel Snyder reporting 2009 allegation. Panel focuses on Trump's allies' pressure campaign and lawmaker pardon requests. Supreme Court strikes down Roe v. Wade. An emboldened Supreme Court majority. GOP gains ground on abortion, guns, despite Democratic control. Pence leans in as ruling leaves Trump and other potential 2024 candidates cautious. Former Meadows aide Cassidy Hutchinson expected to testify at surprise hearing. Former aide provided nuggets for justices' criminal probe, experts say. Justices limit EPA's power to combat climate change, a blow to Biden's agenda. A headline for nearly every day of July 2022. Take me up to the Capitol now. How close Trump came to joining rioters. Trust in Supreme Court falters after Roe decision. As inflation grows, so does U.S. housing crisis. Highland Park suspect planned attack for weeks, wore women's clothing as disguise, police say. Highland Park suspect's father sponsored gun permit application, police say. Boris Johnson resigns after party revolt, will stay on till new leader chosen. Shinzo Abe, former Japanese leader, assassinated by man with homemade firearm. The staggering scope of U.S. gun deaths goes far beyond mass shootings. Uber leveraged violent attacks against its drivers to pressure politicians. Uber wooed Russia's rich and powerful, but failed there anyway. Panel to explore how Trump summoned extremist groups to Washington. 5 charts explaining why inflation is so high. Trump looks to fall launch for 2024, potentially upending midterms. Biden fist bumps Saudi crown prince ahead of controversial meeting. White House on sidelines as mansion again crushes Biden's policy ambitions. Soaring dollar could help Fed in fight against inflation. UK braces for record temperatures as heat apocalypse hits Europe. Secret Service says it can't recover texts. National Archives seeks details. Trump escalated tensions in lead-up to violent Capitol attack, panel findings show. Brutal heat from Phoenix to Boston triggers alerts for 100 million. I don't want to say the election's over, Trump said in video one day after attack. Russian missiles strike Odessa port a day after grain deal, Ukraine says. A triumphant anti-abortion movement begins to deal with its divisions. Pope Francis apologizes at former residential school in Canada. Biden poised for big wins in Congress. Justice Department investigating Trump's actions as part of January 6 criminal probe. Manchin says he never walked away as Democrats push spending deal. The 2-week scramble that saved Democrats' climate agenda. Corporations on the front lines of the economy say cracks are forming. A headline for every day of August 2022. Confidential review of U.S. organ transplant system reveals technological flaws. Pelosi lands in Taiwan, defying Chinese warnings of forceful response. Kansas voters resoundingly reject amendment aimed at restricting abortion rights. Russian court sentences WNBA star Brittany Griner to 9 years in prison. Employers added 528,000 jobs in July, shattering expectations. The economy is growing by one measure, shrinking by another. Senate inches toward passage of spending bill amid marathon debate. Post-Roe summoned GOP wage uphill battle to offer families more support. GOP criticizes FBI search of Trump residence, vows to investigate Justice Department. Democrats savor spending bill, and some tell voters they want to do more. Arctic is warming faster than expected, study finds. FBI searched Trump's home to look for nuclear documents and other items, sources say. The surprising political shifts that led to the climate bill's passage. Falling global food and fuel costs offer poor countries little relief. Trump-allied lawyers pursued voting machine data in multiple states, records reveal. U.S. struggled to convince allies and Zelensky of risk of invasion. Cheney loses primary while vowing effort to keep Trump from White House. Alan Weisselberg, longtime Trump Organization CFO, pleads guilty to tax scheme. Russia's spies misread Ukraine and misled Kremlin as war loomed. Chinese leader asked Biden to prevent Pelosi from visiting Taiwan. As FBI comes under threat, its leader tries to stay out of the fray. Fauci plans to step down in December after half a century in government. Twitter whistleblower won hacker acclaim for exposing software flaws. Biden to cancel up to $10,000 in student loans for most borrowers and extend payment pause. $386 million in COVID aid went to retrain veterans. Only 397 landed jobs. Trump's Mar-a-Lago affidavit unsealed with redactions. Truth Social faces financial peril as worry about Trump's future grows. Inside Trump's war on the National Archives. Greenland ice sheet set to raise sea levels by barely a foot, study finds. The violent and lawless erasure of the Amazon. The photo of classified documents from Trump's resort annotated. A headline for every day of September 2022. COVID, monkeypox, polio, summer of viruses reflects travel and warming trends. FBI inventory shows how Trump mingled classified and unclassified documents. With Trump in the news, more Democrats dropped their quiet dissent to Biden running again. Amazon Care's demise shocked employees. Now the company's plans may hinge on acquisitions. Canada stabbing suspects still at large after 10 people killed. Election deniers repeatedly visited Georgia office at center of criminal probe, video shows. Files seized at Mar-a-Lago include material on foreign nations' nuclear capabilities. Queen Elizabeth II dies at 96. Britain mourns a life of duty and service. Russia admits retreat from key towns in eastern Ukraine. GOP seeks midterm reset as inflation and abortion temper ambitions. As Russians drop rifles and flee, liberated villages are left stunned. The Russians are in trouble, U.S. official says of latest war analysis. Rapid loss of territory in Ukraine reveals spent Russian military. White House reaches tentative agreement to avert national rail strike. Latest batch of subpoenas spells out sweeping scope of Justice Department's January 6th probe. Global economy weakening amid inflation fight, war, and lingering pandemic. Republicans in key battleground races refuse to say they will accept results. Hurricane Fiona unleashes catastrophic damage, Puerto Rico governor says. Video appears to undercut Trump electors' account of alleged data breach. Biden condemns Russia in UN speech after Putin's partial mobilization order. Russians protest Putin's mobilization order. Zelensky urges just punishment. U.S. has sent private warnings to Russia about using nuclear weapons. Is the pandemic over? Here's what activities Americans are and are not resuming. Fed unsure of economy's direction as Wall Street meltdown worsens. The Biden-Trump rematch, in many ways, has already begun. McCarthy allies worked to oust Cawthorn. It was part of a bigger plan. Ian nears Category 5 as Florida governor warns of nasty days ahead. Historic damage as millions lose power. U.S. imposes new sanctions over Russia's illegal annexation. A headline for every day of October 2022. Russia says troops are leaving key city a day after Putin laid claim to it. Americans captured by Russia detail months of beatings and interrogation. Prosecutors outline Oath Keepers' alleged roles in seditious conspiracy. Ukraine hammers Russian forces into retreat on east and south fronts. Putin faces limits of his military power as Ukraine recaptures land. Majority of GOP nominees denied 2020 election results could have enormous sway. Putin confronted by members of Inner Circle over Ukraine war, U.S. intelligence finds. Explosion hits Crimean bridge, damaging Russian supply route to Ukraine. As Supreme Court test looms, UNC defends use of race in admissions. Putin boasts of massive strike across Ukraine, warns of further attacks. Missile strikes reported across Ukraine as Zelensky meets with G7. Russia announces arrests in Crimea bridge blast. Ukraine calls investigation nonsense. Parkland school shooting jury spares gunman death penalty in 2018 massacre. Russia airstrikes intended to show force reveal another weakness. As infrastructure money flows, Buttigieg's choices will shape U.S. for decades. Russia is grabbing men off the street to fight in Ukraine. Technology funded by U.S. taxpayers bolsters China's hypersonic missile program. Retired U.S. generals and admirals take top jobs with Saudi crown prince. Whites are now more likely to die from COVID than blacks. Here's why the pandemic shifted. UK Prime Minister Liz Truss resigns. Mar-a-Lago classified papers held U.S. secrets about Iran and China. Trump Mar-a-Lago probe proceeds on 2 tracks, one public, one private. Democrats fear the midterm map is slipping away. Sunak makes his first public remarks as UK's next prime minister. Putin's chef laid low for years. Now the mercenary chief is speaking out. For Fetterman, verbal struggles, contentious exchange and debate with Oz. U.S. economy grows 2.6% in third quarter, reversing a 6-month slump. Inside the secretive 2020 effort by Trump allies to access voting machines. The most diverse Supreme Court ever confronts affirmative action. So many bodies. Sole witnesses recall Halloween night of true horror. Deep divide among justices as UNC affirmative action argument. A headline for every day of November 2022. Employers worry U.S. workers are getting less done. The data backs up their fears. Trump lawyers saw Clarence Thomas as key to stop Biden electoral count, emails show. Democrats count on huge black turnout, but has the party delivered in return? Democrats fear midterm drubbing as party leaders rush to defend blue seats. Obama takes aim at election deniers on Pennsylvania campaign stop. Midterms pose fresh test for American democracy after 2 years under fire. Republicans sue to disqualify thousands of mail ballots in swing states. As voters cast ballots, disputes over monitoring grow. Abortion rights advocates score big wins. GOP hopes stymied by infighting Trump and flawed candidates. Democrats increasingly optimistic about holding the Senate. Kelly wins in Arizona, pushing Democrats closer to keeping Senate. Election deniers lose key state races. University of Virginia shooting suspect is in custody, police say. Republicans nearing House majority as vote tallies continue. McConnell re-elected GOP Senate leader, turning back challenge from Rick Scott. Pelosi to step down as top House Democrat. Hundreds of workers said to have opted to leave Twitter over Musk ultimatum. Iran to secretly help Russia build drones for Ukraine war, Western officials say. Police say suspect in deadly LGBTQ club shooting was subdued by people in Colorado club. LGBTQ club patron subdued suspect with person's own gun, officials say. How the Colorado shooting unfolded and ended. Gunman who killed 6 at Virginia Walmart was a store employee, police say. FTX's Bahamas crypto empire. Stimulants, subterfuge, and a spectacular collapse. With record COVID cases, China scrambles to plug an immunity gap. Western sanctions catch up with Russia's wartime economy. Rare protests against China's zero COVID policy erupt across country. Nearly 9 in 10 COVID deaths are in people 65 or older. Experts warn of a recession, but it still hasn't arrived. House Democrats elect first black party leader in Congress and prepare for new generation. A headline for every day of December 2022. Tech firms facilitated COVID aid fraud, collecting billions in fees, report finds. Russia and Ukraine are fighting the first full-scale drone war. In Georgia runoff election, GOP worries about Walker, Trump, and party's future. From chicken wings to used cars, inflation begins to ease its grip. Fearing scandal, Air Force blocked generals' foreign consulting deals. New January 6 special counsel subpoenas Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan officials for Trump communications. Warnock's win in Georgia gives Democrats a 51-seat Senate majority. Brittany Griner released in swap for Russian arms dealer. In Senate shakeup, Sinema changes her party affiliation to independent. In Griner prison swap, Biden faced resistance abroad and at home. Congressional Republicans divided on attacking Trump investigations. Hospitals scramble to contain COVID outbreaks across China. Cartels reach deep into U.S. heartland as geography of drug demand shifts. To live and die in Tijuana, Mexico's new fentanyl capital. Russia is destroying Ukraine's economy, raising costs for U.S. and allies. Ukraine air defenses counter Russian barrage, but missiles hit energy targets. Disaster scenarios raise the stakes for Colorado River negotiations. Argentina leads France 3-2 in extra time at Epic World Cup final. January 6 panel convenes, expected to refer charges for Trump to Justice Department. GOP's looming Afghanistan probe worries Biden aides. Skepticism before a search, inside the Trump Mar-a-Lago investigation. U.S. life expectancy continued to fall in 2021 as COVID and drug deaths surged. Fallout continues from report that blames Trump for deadly riot. Brutal conditions batter U.S., ravaging Buffalo and leaving hundreds stuck in vehicles. Death toll in Buffalo raises to 7. Conditions across U.S. remain frigid and travel snarled. At least 26 dead in Buffalo as roads remain impassable and more snow is expected. Social Security denies disability benefits based on list with jobs from 1977. Southwest memo cited staffing concerns as scrutiny grows over meltdown. Economists unsure whether 2023 will bring recession. These 10 charts show where things stand. House panel releases Trump tax returns in another setback for former president. How Benedict's death could reshape the Catholic Church.